People become repetitive over time. I'm going to try. Why are you not? Oh. People become repetitive over time. Let me see. Okay. They become repetitive and they start saying and doing the same things over and over again. And whether or not a person repeats themselves often is dependent upon IQ. A low IQ individual is going to, in contrast to a high IQ individual, repeat themselves more often. But the main point is this person will repeat themselves every day, and this person will repeat themselves for example once a week, plus variance, but they will repeat themselves most clearly in the course of a year. A low IQ person will repeat themselves once a day and do so every day. Of course, dependent on or will repeat themselves every day. So that's what I meant here with one. So 1x day instead of 1x week, where the next week is not going to be extremely different from the previous one. But of course, like there's a threshold, right? If you're really low IQ, your day isn't going to involve much more than your eating habits and your direct environment. But of course, if once you start to go up, you'll start to see things like let me draw some boxes here if I can, please. There's like a scale from low to high, and on the high end, repetitiveness becomes less and takes different forms. Like the repetitiveness might be there, but there is going to be rather than with a low IQ individual, it would look more like a sine wave. But a high IQ person is more like a recurring fractal, but one that always expands and that builds on top of the next part of the fractal. But there's of course these points are usually going to be a repetition of the previous. So you can draw a linear line here, and then you would see like this one doesn't differ much from this one, and this one, and this one doesn't from this one, but there is a progression. So if you go far enough over time, those points will look very different, but in the immediate environment, those points are going to be a lot less the same in a large part than in the immediate environment, because the immediate environment is building upon what's previously known. But of course also over time there might be like some eureka moment or a point where like information isn't quite clear, and then they have to pull back from here, and then a new fractal forms that is based on something that was more, and then you know how fractals go. But in a low IQ, of course, that also happens, but their thought is more especially when we're talking about someone with Down syndrome, their IQ is going to be lots more in the range of everyday tasks that will be difficult, and there will not be much thought or abstract thought or building of thoughts upon thoughts and meta thinking and all kinds and varieties of intelligence. I think this is also why over time people stop watching. For example, I used to watch PewDiePie, or I used to watch Suskin even is getting there, but he pulls from so many sources, of course, that's difficult to distinguish because of because I can always expand upon what he says by referring back to other people that have such diverse and sophisticated thoughts that it might take a lifetime to fully comprehend them, and then people are building on top of those. So it's like an ongoing, never-ending process where you're just a kink in the chain. But you know, if you watch TV shows in general, like or you know, PewDiePie or whatever, they become repetitive because they get into their format, and then not that they're not intelligent, but at some point they might need to learn something very new, and that learning something new takes time, and then they need to at the same time be creating their thing. And so then this thing where I'm talking here occurs, where the pattern is linear, one thing is building on top of the next, and then it diverges into something different, and then they pull back to where they were, and they try to add something that they did before to that, or their format kind of changes. You from observing, I find it quite annoying to start talking about PewDiePie in this. I didn't have a much different or another example that I could pull from, but let's keep it on him. You know, well, he is going to have this thing. I don't really watch him anymore, so it's kind of annoying. I tried checking out some episodes recently just to see how that went, but it's pretty much the same with differences and you know, other better qualities, and of course the world is moving forward, but the world, even though a lot of things change and we take things for granted, that we adapt very fast to things that change, and live in this new world that like was unimaginable 20-30 years ago. There's still not, I do believe there is like a lot of change coming in like the next 10 years. I even find it amazing. I'm going to give it a quick check. I am having here some problem with, I think, my GPU. Are you the GPU that's doing it? Yeah, the GPU is spiking. Preferences. But these people actually have it. You'd imagine that these people are awesome and have it all that great, and these people are on the lower end and they don't have it. In some ways that's true, but these people, they never really need to adapt to anything. They form their routines, and they're easier. They have it easier to. Of course, there's things like lack of impulse control and stuff, but they'll get into this groove and they have less to think about. And while these people can get into trouble, even though of course they are intelligent, there is also a finite amount of time. There are circumstances, and these people, you might build a branch, like a branch of knowledge, and those branches, or branches of knowledge in general, are stacking on top of each other. And what you get right now in the modern world is that certain people choose to go to certain branches, and those branches break because something isn't or wasn't as didn't go as fast as they anticipated, or something broke, or something doesn't exist anymore. And then those, like, there's still people that make cassette tapes and floppy disks and whatever, but those aren't the companies that did that are mainly going to be, or are bankrupt. They don't exist anymore. I think that's a good example. Those branches have broken, they are gone, they don't exist anymore, and they likely never will anymore. And so because of that, then they need to adapt. Of course, they will have knowledge from here that might be translatable to somewhere else, but that's somewhat more difficult. While people that would do base jobs and that are more repetitive, more predictable, will be capable of maneuvering themselves into jobs that will be there a lot longer than anyone else's types of jobs. Which doesn't mean that just because something is a high IQ job that it is going to necessarily be something that where people are going to be in a state or that is necessarily going to disappear. But the thing with intellectual or IQ related work is that it is by definition automatizable, meaning anything that is IQ is your processing power, which is why I don't like IQ tests, because they really don't, well, technically they do, but people tend to process in different ways, in large varieties of ways, and abstract processing can be difficult to deduce, I believe, but you know, you can build a computer that speaks words and that starts to think like a human. Now, of course, you can also build machines that can do those types of jobs, but then certain types of those jobs will require some sort of motorized functions that are more difficult to create, which we have seen with robotics. Now, of course, there are not robots, but like automation machines, like printing presses, etc., that can easily reduce the amount of things or amount of thought used for, or amount of people are rather used for to create things. But then you know, everything is automatic. If you can build a, you can build a human, right? Replace them with robots in general, but in general these people are safer when things go wrong than these people, because these people will fall and need to adapt and learn, and even though they can, there might be that there is not an immediate solution, or that they might, it's not because you're smart that you're going to come up with ideas on the spot. I don't, or that you're going to have good ideas on the spot. You might, it might take some time. Of course, you need to put your heads towards the task. I don't believe in this this it just came to me type of ordeal. Usually things are built and invented based upon some task or thing that someone wants to do, like someone wants to fly into the sky or go into space. Then they build rockets, and because they build rockets, they find out that there are many stars and that they can travel to other parts, and then because of that they need to start exploring cosmology and need to start exploring other things, and then they start to have questions like, where does this all come from, and where is everything made out of, and then there's quantum physics. And you know, the whole ordeal is, and I'm mainly pointing this out because I was raised or have seen on TV when I was younger a lot of hocus pocus, wishy-washy ways of thinking about how people come up with their ideas. I believe that it's very wrong to think that people, there is this misconception that you quite often see with people, that they think that it kind of magically appears, that it's some magical drug that they used, or that they there's even this thing about an inventor that like swims to the bottom of a pool every day and then drowns himself, and when he goes to near death he comes above water and has a new idea every time. I believe that it was like something that I saw once, or that someone told me at least. I'm going to quickly genius. I don't know, I don't believe. Birds are drowning. I don't remember where I got that one from. I think someone said that to me or whatever. But I think the is a diving underwater, where he says he comes up with his best ideas. Also, he doesn't drown himself. Japanese engineering Yoshiro Nakamatsu is a Japanese inventor. I'm on Wikipedia right now. Inventor, he regularly appears in inventions. Stacked color record, dual color record, optical sound media, use a print paper sheet instead of transparent film. Systems for generating hydrogen and oxygen, Cerebrex armchair chat. maybe I should look for pool. Oh, it doesn't even say pool anymore. Swim, dive. I think they remove. Claims to benefit from lack of oxygen to the brain during his dives, making inventions 0.05 seconds before death. Now, there is something to this, right? When you're in a near-death situation, your body is going to be more likely to come up with things because it has to come up with something, and if you give it a task, it might be very much the case that you are faster at coming up to something. It's like the dead ground strategy, where people that are in a corner and about to lose their life will fight 10 times harder than someone who is just attacking and has all the room to escape. Because they're dead anyway if they lose, so they have to. But even then, things might go wrong. Like I myself am stuck in Corona. I have done a lot of work, but it doesn't lead me anywhere currently. Even though I'm constantly branching out from this and that, and it's really pushing me to come up with new things every day, all the time. It is definitely not fun, I can tell, and my brain is like trying to go to a place where I am safe and I don't need to think anymore, because it then doesn't require to come up with things anymore. But in the end, I have to. And so I am forced to constantly be adapting. But then, of course, that is I don't think that's a good long-term strategy, because coming up with good things also requires study and education. And if you're just sitting there and not really doing anything or learning anything after a while, that's where the repetition comes in. That's why people stop learning, and there's also so finite amount of people with good ideas, so finite amount of good ideas. There's a lot of noise, especially once you're already more established and people already look at you and learn from you. Finding new people you might within your branch might become more difficult, and some things might become a little ridiculous or maybe even frowned upon if once you're in a certain established sector. But then again, like you always have the feeling that you're at this point where everything is known, and then yet after a couple of years something new comes out that's fantastic to learn about, and that adds to your repertoire of things you want to know or know and need to know. Yeah, I think I'm going to start rambling here, because I'm starting to pull out of you know, I'm getting into the limit of my current understanding, and I'm going to cut the video here. And I'd like to thank you. I might expand on this further. This is a good I thought this was kind of rather cool to talk about. I need to have other thoughts as well, and I'll see you next time.